You cannot go into a sales conversation just answering questions and being super informative. Because if that's what they wanted, they would just Google it and the same answer would probably come up on enagic.com. That's not what this is. What this is for you to continue that tone of provocateur of their mind that you started with in the ad, which is the reason they even got into your world. Hi, big smile. I hope you get all better soon. So you said, hi, Balazs, hope you're well. We may not make the call as we have 3 kids flat out sick, but we will try. My question, I feel like I'm getting into the friend zone on sales calls. Somehow I'm losing authority and not guiding them to a close. I find that I'm answering questions in a lot of detail, and I wonder if this comes across as defensive rather than informative. Often we get to the end of the call, the person has committed to looking into financing and seems genuinely grateful and excited, and then they ghost or just never take the next step. What comes to mind as a fix for this? How can I maintain more posture in a call? Thanks for any feedback, Danica. P.S. For context, these people are coming off of an ad to our Instagram DMs, having a short pre-qualifying conversation to a masterclass, then booking a call and watching your highest converting offer video and a product video before call time. All right, sweet. Anybody else have a similar situation happening right now? It's because you're amazing friends, right? That's the problem. You just want to be friends with everybody. It's not a bad thing. It's just maybe we got to separate the friendship stuff and the business stuff temporarily. And then once they have become our business partners, then we start building the friendship. A lot of you believe that you got to be a friend first before they will buy from you, and that's actually wrong. Because if they needed a friend to solve their problems, they would probably call one of their friends. But instead, they're answering your ads on the internet and you're a stranger. So why is that? If you have money problems, if you have lifestyle problems, if you have health problems, if you are unhappy with your life in some way, why are they not calling their friends and why are they talking to you on the internet? Think about that, because that's kind of what's happening. If you get them in the friend zone, it's no different than them taking out their phone and calling their friend. So clearly there's a reason why they're not doing that. Does that make sense? It's kind of like asking your uncle for lawyer advice and he's not a lawyer. We wouldn't do that. Some of us do, right? Hey, what do you think about? And then you get the like mumbo jumbo stuff that isn't really helpful because they're not a lawyer and they're not qualified to be teaching this stuff. So you are coming across in your content, most of you are doing a pretty good job as someone who is more knowledgeable, more experienced than they are in said topic, right? You know more about marketing, sales, business. You have an opportunity, a community, a training, something that they don't have. And you are kind of leaving them these little clues, these breadcrumbs, I guess you could say, as they watch your ads or watch your content that gives them that curiosity, gives them that intrigue. And they're like, maybe you can help me. And I want to come to you because I don't want my friends to know about my problems. That's what most people are thinking. You want to tell your friends, like sometimes you have certain friends where you can talk about your problems with, but it's more so like for a shoulder to cry on or ears to listen, not necessarily for like, give me a solution. It's like, I just want to complain to you that things are hard and I want you to understand and tell me that it's not my fault. You don't want the friend to be like, listen, man, and give you the tough love, right? Like, get your life together. You're making these choices. You don't really want that. You want the friend to just be like, me too. Yeah, life is so hard, right? And then you go back and realize your problems are still your problems. Nothing got solved, but you feel a little bit better. You feel seen. You feel heard. You feel understood, right? So we need to stay far, far away from that place because if that was what people wanted, then that's what they would be doing. So the friend zone is an interesting place because you also don't want to come across as someone who doesn't care, right, Danica? You genuinely care. And so it's a fine balance. But where the posturing really comes from, we've talked about this a lot, is the person who asks the questions is in control. And most of us, we fall back onto our heels very quickly in a sales conversation in the first 1 or 2 minutes and basically just become Google or Chat GPT and start answering all the questions that they have. And we think that that's a sales call. That's more like a Q&A, inquiry. It's not a sales call. We need to be in control. We need to guide them through that process, right? So there's usually a big disconnect because they're going through all of those steps that you mentioned. By the way, you can tell Danica's been on these coaching calls for quite some time because she even added the PS for context because I always ask for context. So thank you for being one step ahead. That's awesome. So these people are coming off of an ad. What does the ad say? Does the ad say, do you need a friend? If so, click here and, Danica is ready and available to listen to your problems. Your ad doesn't say anything about a friend, right? So you're clearly coming across a certain way in your ad. What's the tone?
I think the tone is the word that's coming to mind is like a little provocative, like it's trying to get them thinking about the situation that they're in, specifically, motherhood and watching the years just fly by and not being able to be there and be present. And it speaks to the challenges that we have had and the solution that we found and invites them to connect about that. You can go now.
Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what I was looking for. So the fact that you said it's provocative, it's thought provoking, it's something that makes them kind of see, consider a different perspective, like, never looked at it like that. You have to keep that in exact same tone on the sales call.
Mhm.
And all you're doing is essentially continuing that conversation and going deeper. So when you think about the questions or the thoughts that you provoke initially, it's meant to be enough to get the click, right? Every single step in the sales process is only selling the next step. And often what happens is we sell 1 or 2 steps and then just assume, you know what, maybe at step 2, I'll just jump to step 10. It's fine. Nope, it's not fine. It's got to go continuous, continuous, continuous. Because what they're doing each time they go to the next step is they're saying, yes, yes, yes. So by the time they talk to you on the phone, they're expecting you to lead that conversation with a lot of authority, with a lot of posture, and most importantly, a lot of questions.
Mhm.
So here's what happens. Um, if you over explain, you're going to kind of lose them because they want to get to the solution. They want to kind of get to the point. Okay. We have to be mindful that people are busy and a professional doesn't need to take too long. You almost want to assume that they need less initially and almost try to get them to basically be ready to go, ready to start. And then the objection handling towards the end of the conversation is what extends it as much as needed, but not ever too much. So you're aiming for like a 15-minute call, and you'll probably end up in the 30 minutes most of the time, maybe 40 minutes sometimes. But what a lot of you do is block off an hour for a sales call. And then you're like, well, shit, let me just kind of make a friend and tell you about all my life and my story. And let's talk about everything under the sun because we've got so much time. And then when you actually kind of look at the call and trim it down, you're like, we really just kind of were talking about the good, like the important stuff they were there for 10 to 15 minutes. So what the hell were we doing the rest of the time? Making a friend. Lost them, right? Like if you're busy, which you are, you have lots of kids and all that stuff. It's like we got 15 minutes to kind of help you out. And then you block off like a 30-minute window, and then the best thing that you can have is another call and have back to back to back calls. Anytime you guys are doing sales calls, guys, the best way to structure it is to do a
Trace.
lot of them
Oh, okay. She was
back to
sorry she
back.
didn't like the news. I think.
Trying to find who this iPhone 368 is. Found you. Please keep your phone on mute if you can, guys. Is this making sense for you guys? It's kind of like imagine if we were using an example of going to the gym and working out, and you walked into the gym and you did a 5 reps of bicep curls and you left the gym. And then you came back tomorrow, you did 5 more curls and you left the gym. What kind of workout would that be? It'd be shit, right? You would never even feel like you're in the mood or like getting that pump or whatever, right? So sales calls are very much the same. Is like you want to basically be like, okay, the reps, the reps, the reps, the reps. And then 3, 4, 5 calls later, you don't want to stop. You're like, man, it's like, I know I'm supposed to stop at 5 o'clock and I got dinner and stuff, but like I could go until 10. Like, give me 5 more calls. So if you have an opportunity to book them like that, you're going to feel so much energy, so much momentum. Your confidence will go up. Your the repetition of like the questions and the similarities between the prospects on the phone, you'll be like, oh my gosh, we just had this conversation with Mike. And Mike was telling me that he wishes he has more time with his kids, but he's at his job. And because your ads are attracting similar people, you're going to start to connect the dots of like Mike, John, Bob, Steve, Joe are almost all the same person. They're just slightly in a different specific circumstance, like 20% is different, 80% is the same. So what happens when you talk to the first person, Joe, is like you're referencing the calls that you had last week or the last time you're on the phone. Does that make sense, Danica? So your sales calls are threaded together. You're using the conversation on the sales call yesterday as leverage on the sales call today. Like, yeah, I was just talking to a guy named Mike yesterday, and he was in a similar shoes to you. And you're basically selling him through talking about the guy you talked to before, which is all true. You're not making it up. This is making sense of what I'm saying. So they all start to be connected. So if you talk to moms, which I know is your demographic, and you have a really great conversation with a mom, but it ended in the friend zone, you're going to leave the friend zone part out, but you're just going to talk about like what they opened up and shared with you and then leverage that on the next call. Okay. So that's a really important thing. A lot of you guys are keeping your calls too private from each other. And like, it appears like you don't talk to anybody except for this one person. You want to make it sound like you're on the phone all day, helping people all day. You're telling a story about Sarah. You're telling a story about Susie, right? And then this person's listening going like, oh my God, Danica, you help all these moms? Because you're using real stories of real calls. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're closing them. Like that, you don't have to go and confirm that you close them, but you're still getting the reps in and you're learning about other people's circumstances and their reasons and their pain, what they're looking for. And you leverage that. You keep bringing it up. And it makes you sound more of an authority. And remember, authority is the opposite of the friend zone. Okay? So when they start to ask you a lot of questions, you need to acknowledge the question with something positive. That's a great question. Thanks for asking. That's a really, really awesome question. People ask that all the time. But before I explain, before I get to that, now you take back control. Let me ask you this. So you're basically going, I acknowledge you have a question, but I'm not here to basically be answering your questions because then you're in control and you don't know what's happening and you don't know where we're going with this conversation. I do. So thanks for asking. Let's put it on the shelf. But now let's get back on track. You don't say that, but that's what you're thinking. Let's get back on track. Let me ask you what I need to know so we can go through the steps of this conversation. So if there was a question like, how does the commission structure work? Or how much does it cost? Do you get that in the first 30 seconds? So just tell me how much it costs. What's the price? And you're like, oh, shit. We're supposed to talk about that at the end, right? That's how it feels for most of us. That's a really great question. I can tell you're really excited to get started. But before we get into the price or the cost, let me ask you a question. And then we get right back to the stuff we need to know before we're comfortable sharing the cost, because all of the value that we're collecting has to be greater than the price of the product or the business. So if we can identify your pain, we can identify how long you've been stuck in this place. Like, let's say somebody's been in a career that they hate for 20 years and they happen to get on the phone with you and we don't know that. And they just say, what's the cost to start this business? And you're like, it's 10,000. They're like, oh, it's too much. You're done. It's over. But if you say, that's such a great question, let's get back to that in a minute. Let me ask you, how long have you been unfulfilled in your career for? Oh, 20 years, and they start kind of sharing the story like, wow, you've been unsatisfied for 20 years. And have you been happy with your income for that time? No, it's been shit. They probably wouldn't say it like that, but it's been pretty shit. So what are all the opportunities that you didn't experience? The opportunity cost of not being able to spend time with your kids, not being able to travel, not being able to do the things that you want for 20 years. What's that worth to you? Oh, that's probably, they say big numbers. So then later on, when they say how much does it cost a business, like it's only 10 grand. Remember we talked about it earlier that you would have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get all that 20 years time back. It's only 10,000 for you to solve this now. Completely different context. But if we said 10,000 without that information, it's over. See what I'm saying? So that's why we need to acknowledge they asked the question. Reply back, great question. Thanks for asking. We're definitely getting into that. But before I explain, and then counter it with a relevant question that kind of bounces off the one that they had for you. So you get control back. So you do that. The next one is controlling the close. So as you go through the process, you have to assume that they're of course going to do this. All of you need to get to such a place of your level of belief, conviction, and confidence that at the end of the call, they have to buy. They have to do this. It would be absolutely insane to not do this. So when you get to the end, it's like in your mind, you need to kind of visualize or feel that the only thing that they can say is like, so how do I get one of these things? They're not going to say it like that, but you have to assume that they're basically saying that. How do I get one of these things? How do I fill out the paperwork? How soon can you have this in my house? That's what you need to think that they're trying to say. They just don't know how to say that a lot of the time because they're not experienced in buying things like this. So they're going to say something dumb that makes it sound like they don't want it. But they do. Of course they do. Why wouldn't you? If we dissect this every different possible way, from the value of the product to the tax benefits to the lifetime distribution rights to the potential of the business and the commissions and the bonuses and the legacy and the value and the impact and come on, man, we can dissect this thing to like 100 different ways for this to be so obvious that you need to do this. And the value is insanely greater than the perceived price or cost that feels steep, right? I tell people all the time, if this thing was like 100 grand for a quad, we would still be selling them. We wouldn't be selling them exactly to the same demographic, but trust me, we would still be selling quads for 100 grand. And everyone would just need to learn how to position it to someone who values the benefits of a quad and everything in it for 100 grand, and we would still be selling it on financing, on payment plans, all the same stuff. We would just add another zero to the investment. It would still sell. So if we think about it from that perspective in our mind, that a quad should be 100 grand, but it's on sale for 15,000 right now. Does that help with your positioning and your value of like, oh my God, like you got to get one of these quick because like the regular price is 100 grand. You don't say that because that's not true, but that's how we got to feel about it. But a lot of us are going from like low ticket mindset, getting paid 10, 20, $30 an hour at our job to trying to sell something for 10, 15,000. It's such a jump that it's intimidating. It's like, I have agreed. This is the crazy thing. When someone pays you per hour and you accept that for your whatever job or whatever, like you literally have agreed to be like, yeah, that's how much my time is worth. And most of us have gone our whole lives in agreement to a ridiculously small amount of money for our time. And then trying to turn around and be like, oh yeah, it's just 10 grand. It's just like throwing these numbers around that are like so big to what we're used to that it's scary. So we need to shift it to be like, it's not a big jump from our hourly income that we're used to this big number. It's actually a reversal of a business that should be worth 100 grand plus, but it's actually only 15 grand. And it could be on a payment plan and a finance and stuff like this. So it like makes it even more affordable for a regular, everyday, normal person to get it, right? So the 3 points to cover your question is you cannot go into a sales conversation just answering questions and being super informative. Because if that's what they wanted, they would just Google it and the same answer would probably come up on enagic.com, right? That's not what this is. What this is for you to continue that tone of provocateur of their mind that you started with in the ad, which is the reason they even got into your world. So that tone needs to come across in the call. They're going to try to interject by like, I have a question, I have a question, I have a question, which you need to interpret you want to buy. You just don't know how to say that to me. And before I can sell this to you, I need to ask you some questions to make sure you're a good fit for me. And I'm going to ask you the questions because if you're not a good fit, then like this isn't going to work. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
No. Yeah.
Please? Do you have other
Yes.
questions to ask me first?
Yes. I
Um,
have all the questions for you.
Right, perfect. This is so good because one of the things, I mean, one of the things I love about our community is there's so many people doing it so many different ways. And I feel
Hmm.
like some of the women that I've learned sales call strategies from have coached a little bit differently with more like leading in with questions. And it felt really good initially. Like it felt like me. Like I just want to be able to give. And if you have a question, I can give. And then you have another question and I can give again. But it's clearly not working. And this is why, like, this was the disconnect. But my question for you is, so the way this ad is running, and it's by far our best ad providing the most high qualified leads, is that by the time we get to the call, I do actually feel like I know their why. Like I know why they're there. I know what their vision is. I feel like I know them reasonably well, and I'm still only talking maybe two, three, four back and forths in the DMs. So if I were reclaiming the power dynamic at the beginning of that call, what question is relevant for me to ask at that point when like I do know why they're there and I do feel like I have a really good sense of their pain points already.
So you do know why they're there, but you only know the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Your job is to go deeper
Okay.
because it's getting to the real truth, the real why, to the point where they're like, okay, that gets them to get started.
Hmm.
It's like you're actually guiding them to like a breaking point.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
understand?
Yeah.
So whenever you think about connecting with a new person on the internet and you're going through an application and you divulging some information, how likely are you to go to the deepest part of yourself in that initial application? Unlikely, right? So you're almost being like, let me give a couple clues.
Hmm.
And then what you're doing is you're assuming you know the full story. You're assuming you know everything else. And you're like, we don't need to talk about it. I get you. I'm just like you. No, 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 no. That's the mistake. You
Hmm.
need to have a curiosity to go, wait a second. They said this, but why? What do they mean by that? If
Hmm.
that doesn't change or that problem that they told me doesn't get solved, how are they going to feel in 10 years?
Hmm.
Like what is the opportunity cost or the long-term effect of this feeling in the moment? We're going to talk about that. Because if you can do two things, I think I've shared this before when I went to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. I think I might have told you guys this before, but for some of you that are new. So I went to Unleash the Power Within, and this is relevant to what I was just saying. So Tony Robbins was up on stage. It was like towards the end of the event, 10,000 people in California. And he walked us through this exercise where everybody had to stand up, close their eyes, and have this visualization where they're like looking at themselves in the mirror. And he was like walking you through this reflection process as you went into the future, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. The music was getting more and more intense. And it was basically talking about you not pursuing the thing that you know you should or solving the problem that you know you have, whether it's your health, your how you feel about yourself, your relationships, your loneliness, your marriage, whatever, like not attacking it, but instead just being comfortable and complacent and making excuses and like and then you looking in the mirror at yourself in the eyes as time passes on and it's just like a deeper hole and it's more painful and you have more regret and you're like eventually to this point where you're like there's no coming back from that place. And literally what was crazy is people all around, they're just visualizing this and they started bawling, crying, screaming, like yelling like at their parents who like weren't even there, like fucking crazy shit. I was like, yo guys, I'm sorry, I can't focus. Like you guys got issues, man. Like, it was pretty intense. So that was hardcore. Like one person like threw a chair and like I don't even know what was happening, but they were like feeling this thing for real, right? And then afterwards, music became more happy, more like positive, inspiring, and it was now like that dramatic like you are going to take the next step. You know, you are going to do what you're meant for, and it's going to be scary and it's going to be hard and you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to make progress, and as time goes on, you're going to end up where you're meant to be, your destination, your journey, whatever. I'm paraphrasing it obviously. So we can do something similar on these calls in a way where it's like best case scenario, worst case scenario. If you take action now, all these doors open and all these possibilities happen. Walk me through that. You know, walk me through best case scenario. If you were to go ahead with this business opportunity, this company that they already know things about because you've shared that information with them, right? So they're not going into it with zero information. They have quite a bit of context before they talk to you. So now it's their opportunity to go like, if I was to go all in on this, hypothetically, because I'm not buying anything yet, right? Of course not. Of course not. But if you were to buy and you went all in, walk me through what's possible in the coming years. Walk me through what you can create, what kind of lifestyle you can have. Just dream with me for a minute. I'm curious. And then give them the mic. And at first they'll kind of start off like, I don't know, you know, maybe like it would be cool if I made a little bit of money and like I was able to pay off my debt. And it starts very like slow like this, right? Very humble, very like small goals. Be like, yeah, you probably could, you know, pay off your debt. What else? What else would you do? Where else would you go? Do you have, no, you already know, obviously, I don't know, but you know about them, they have kids, or you know about them, they're married, or you know a lot about that stuff already. So now, what you said earlier, Danica, where you're like, I feel like I already know them. This is your opportunity to bring that up and be like, you mentioned that your husband, Mike, has always had this dream to go on a Harley Davidson bike tour around Scotland, you know, because maybe they share that with you or some kind of like dream like that. Be like, when do you think that your husband Mike would do that tour? Would he do it in the next few years? He probably doesn't want to wait too long, right? Life goes by quick. You should probably do it soon, right? Yeah. He would do the bike tour. What else? What about your kids? What are they really excited about? So you let them dream. You let them stop being afraid of like, I can't do this and I don't have time and I don't have money. And all that goes away and we just dream and you guide them through this almost like a guided meditation, but you just dream with them, you encourage them, you let them know because they're so used to people telling them that they're full of shit, their dreams are too big, they're never going to happen, that now you're a coach with authority who has a solution, who encourages them, says, of course you can do that. And then if they say something relevant and you know someone in GPM or the wider community who's achieved that thing, you bring that into the conversation. Yeah, that reminds me of Katie or Christy or Clint or Nick or Mike. They did that actually. They had that dream to build a retreat center and they just did it last year. Isn't that incredible? What's possible? And they're in the same opportunity as you. So you start pulling the stories from the community to be like, that's already been done. So if they can, why not you? So that's part of the conversation, but you're asking the questions. They're doing the talking. They're doing the dreaming. So that's the equivalent to Tony Robbins, where it's like all positive, inspiring. Woo! Everyone's cheering, right? Yeah, we're the best. Woo! Right? And then you bring it back. Reality's back. Now, what happens if you don't do this? Right? All of a sudden it gets deep, dark, like shit is real now. Let's talk about that too. Because at the end of this call, you're going to have one of two choices. You're going to either go in that path or you're going to go in this path. So what happens if you do nothing? Where do you think you're going to be in a year?
So let me
See how powerful this is? So you're basically just asking a couple of questions and you let them talk.
So when you look through,
You let them do the talking. And then if you do this part the most effectively, what we're talking about right now, where you're basically not really talking product knowledge, you're not talking about comp plan, you're not talking, none of that should really be coming up on this call because they've had the pre-call materials, right? They've seen that. Sure, they might have a couple clarifying questions, but nothing too crazy. And then after you've kind of given them like option one, option two, go left, your dreams are possible, go right, do nothing, end up exactly where you are, but probably worse. The very end of the call, ask one simple question. So, where do you want to go from here? That's your close. And then you got to shut up. This is where a lot of people make the mistake. They'll say one little thing and then you'll be like so giddy and so excited because you think you're going to get the sale and you jump back in and then you just, blah, 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 you know, and you say something really ridiculous. So at this point, you put it back in their court. So where do you want to go from here? Because you've just given them two possibilities for the future, right? And now they're literally standing at the fork in the road of what you just discussed. And they can pick, go left, get started, go right. No, thanks, not for me. I'm going to, take my chances with whatever I'm already doing. But if they say, I feel like they're probably going to talk pretty slow here as well. Like say a couple words, pause, think, say a couple words. That's the trap. Because whenever there's that silent moment is when you feel like you have to fill the silence and talk. No, don't. Shut up. Don't talk. So they'll be like, yeah. Awkward silence. This shit might feel like forever, like 30 seconds. And in that moment, they're thinking, fuck, I got to do this. Don't talk. Shut up. Don't say anything. It's very important. I haven't been taking chances, man. I haven't gone for it in so long. I don't even know what it feels like to go after it. Still don't say anything. Shut up. You want to jump in and be like, yeah, I know. I totally. Nope. Shh, 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 shh. Let them think a little bit more. And then after a minute or two, you know what, man? I have to do this. Let's go. That's kind of how it happens, right? It's not exactly how it happens, but it's kind of how it happens. And where do you want to go from here? Shut up. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait. And then once they fully have confirmed their decision, something along the lines of I'm ready, you'll know, like they'll for sure say they're ready to go. Then the next question is a crossroads close where you give them two choices and you assume the sale like it's 150% done. So would you like to buy with your credit card or apply for third-party financing? And that makes it so smooth. It doesn't feel pushy. It doesn't feel like you're hard closing. It doesn't feel like any of that icky salesy stuff that people don't like. It's just very natural. You've guided them as an authority, as a person who asked them questions, made them think, like you said, provocative thoughts, pondering the possibilities, because that's really what life is. The top people in the world are the ones that are really, really great at asking themselves these kinds of questions where like, if I do this, here's the ramifications of that choice. Like, here's what that's going to lead me to, whether it's what I eat, what I drink, how I exercise, my habits, all the way to relationships, who I marry, who's the mother of my kids, where I live in the world, what kind of lifestyle do I have? Like all of this stuff is a decision that has lots of other trailing things that comes along with it. It's like a package. You make a decision, but it comes with a package of other things that come with that. So most people, they literally make a choice and they don't think about what that choice is going to mean in a month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, right? But what you're helping them do on this call is actually removing it from like buying a water ionizer for this much money, which is like such a crazy thought to think that someone might be on a call considering that. Like, how far from the reality of what they're actually doing on the call is that thought process? I'm here to, should I buy this really expensive water ionizer? Like, no. Like, listen, man, that's not what we're talking about here. That's just the action you need to take. That's just the step you need to take. But then after that step, there's a million possibilities that way. And if you don't do it, there's a million possibilities this way. So that's what you help them with on the call. And that keeps you in authority. When you bring in other people's conversations that you've had into the call, I talked to Susie earlier and she was saying this about her kids. And I talked to Sarah last week and she mentioned this about her husband. Man, you are just positioning yourself as the go-to expert that's on the phone with everybody, helping everybody. But if you get on this call and you like don't mention nobody else, is like, is this your first call? Do you ever talk to anybody? That's what they're going to think, even though that might not be true. So if you do 10 calls a week, man, bring them up. Bring them up. Not in a way of like breaching privacy, like giving all their private information. No, but first name, Lisa, Susie, whatever. And they're just going to sit there and be like, oh, I made the right decision, booking a call with you because I can tell you know what you're doing. Make sense for everybody? And then what happens is the momentum starts to build because you have stories, you have people you've helped, you remember, you can even keep like a spreadsheet or a notepad of like these case studies or these individuals you can reference. So that's like the real people that you're speaking to on one side. And then the other side is the people that are already in the community who are years ahead, 6A2-3-5-6, whatever, where you have like those stories to reference from of like what's possible in a decade. So it's like, this is the moment right now. And we're talking about left or right. If you go left, you're going to end up like Susie, who I talked to 2 years ago, and she is on my social media and this is her lifestyle right now. She got laid off. AI took her fucking job. She lost her place and she's really struggling right now. But I talked to Susie 2 years ago and she chose not to take action. That sucks for Susie. Or let's talk about Christy. She's been building this business for 9 years. See the difference? Two real stories. Now, if I'm on the phone, I'm going, oh shit, that's a glimpse into my possibilities of my life. That's what closes people, guys, is real stories, real consequences of their choices, and you just helping guide them, not being like a talking infomercial thing of like, let me just answer all your questions and be your friend. That's not what it is. You become friends with them after. And even then, you don't have to. You can, keep it professional and not be super friendly, but that does come after. So ask more questions, better positioning. Control the close by asking a question like, where do you want to go from here? And then if they're ready and they fully have chosen where they want to go, then from that moment on, option A, option B, option A, option B, option A, option B with everything you ask, because they need to feel like this is the simplest, most straightforward thing I've ever done, not confusing, overwhelming, hard, like want to pull my hair out. Like you want to do your best to take that away. So they're just like, this is amazing. This has been the most fun I've ever had getting a $15,000 loan for a business. And then handling ghosting. The simplest way is just book a meeting from the meeting, right? Because you mentioned about ghosting. So you want to be a professional. And if you actually pay attention to going to the bank, the doctor, the dentist, massage, chiro, any place that you visit that's a professional setting, you will notice that when you pay, they're always booking you in for the next appointment. If you get an oil change, they're already telling you when to book the next oil change. Am I right? And most of us, if we are not stubborn and just like to say no, we'll say, of course, let's do it now. And then we're so grateful when that reminder appointment is coming up because we're like, it's one less thing to worry about. It was already in the schedule. Let me go do it. Right. And if something does come up, it's easier to just cancel it. But most of the time you do it. But the same goes for these kinds of micro conversations is like, great. How long do you need to complete the task, watch the video, etc.? When's a good time to follow up? And then you do the alternation as well. Is afternoon or evening better? Is weekday or weekend? Is 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock? You're always giving them a choice between two simple things. And then if for whatever reason the choices you're asking are not going to work for them, they'll just have a like a rebuttal and say, actually 12 or 3 both doesn't work. How about 5? And then if you're available, you can say, cool, 5 is perfect. And then your job is to put it in the calendar, set an alarm, set a reminder, and be absolutely relentless and following up exactly when you say you're going to. Because that authority carries over one more time. It's like, I can help you. Here's my ad. Here's my questions. Here's the call. Everything's like bam, bam, bam. I'm going to call you at 5 and then you call at 5. It's the last little thing like, okay, I want to work with this person. You know what I mean? It really does help. It's not a huge thing, but it is a huge thing. So let me know if that was helpful. And then the way that I do the scheduling, like the final opportunity is if they ghost you and you felt like you had a good connection, the call went well, they said the right stuff, they were genuinely interested, like it felt like everything went well and went right, then what we need to do is assume that something in their life just happened, right? Kid got sick, flat tire, got the runs from Chinese food. I don't know. Something happened, right? Life is life. So we give them the benefit of the doubt that, hey, they still want it, but life can be crazy sometimes. So about 48 hours in, you send one more message. Hey, I wanted to check in. I'm finalizing the last spots for our mentorship, and I know this was important to you. Reference something they may have shared with you on the call. Let me know if you're moving forward so I can save your spot. And if it's not the right time, that's totally cool too. Reach out in the future if the timing is better. And now, once again, you're giving that sort of like, I'm not chasing you. I'm not desperate. I got lots of leads, lots of calls, and this is just a courtesy message and we're done. And a lot of the times that message will come across being like, hey, thanks. Like, I just had the runs for for the last 24 hours. Thanks for messaging me. And if they don't message, then you have to have that detachment and not dwell on it and not feel down about it and like, oh, I thought they were for sure gonna start. No, forget about it. You got to keep your self-worth intact and be like next, 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 next. And that's why when we think about a daily method for lead gen, you want to have more outreach or more leads than you actually need, because then you're never, dwelling too much on one, because you're like, okay, that one's out. That's fine. Here's 6 more to follow up with. Here's 5 more. Here's 10 more. Like you got too much on your plate. That's how you need to have it for it to not affect your self-confidence. All right.